This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Welcome back. We are here with our state attorney at the law offices of Julie A. Schejbal, and Julie's joining us live today to talk more about the work she's doing as a full-service estate planning law firm. And it's been exciting. We've had quite a few podcasts, and we've talked about so much. We're going to kind of do like a little recap of everything. But before we get started, let's have our woman of the hour say hello. Hey, Julie.
Good morning, Jill. How are you today?
I'm doing great, sweetheart. How was your holiday weekend?
It was great. It was too short, like all holiday weekends, but it was great. Got a little grilling and chilling, a little swimming in. It was perfect.
Oh, great. Well, for those that may not know, you hail from beautiful Dunkirk, Maryland, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
And tell us a little bit about the type of attorney you are, and of course, what your law firm does.
So the law firm basically offers we're a full service estate planning law firm, and we do elder law as well. So what we do is we can help people plan their estate, do wills, trusts, powers of attorney, medical directives. If they need guardianships, we can help them with that, and we can help them through the probate process after mom or dad or their spouse or somebody passes away. So we offer basically all the full services in that area.
Beautiful. Well, we're excited that you're back today, and we're going to rewind a little bit, go back to basics. You want to talk a little bit about nerdy stats. What's that all about?
Well, exactly. So I was mining some data today or the week, and I found out that, and I think this adds impetus or momentum toward getting your estate planning done, because everybody's saying, all the experts are saying, we're looking at the greatest wealth transfer in the history of man. Baby boomers are aging, the World War II generation is aging, and as they pass away, all of their wealth is transferring to the next generation. And the estimates are somewhere between 70 trillion and $86 trillion of wealth is going to be transferred over maybe the next decade and a half to 2 decades, whatever it looks like. So it's going to be a lot of money going to the next generation. But then what the other startling stat is, only 30% of Americans have an estate plan.
Yeah.
So we're going to have, yeah. So basically, if you're in a room of 10 people, you're with 10 friends, 7 of them don't have a will, right? Or any kind of estate plan. And maybe what's even more dramatic is only 6% of Americans with minor children have taken care of guardianships for their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other stat would be that 35% of Americans say that they've been affected by family conflict after somebody died because there was no estate plan in place.
Yeah.
They have all of these kind of startling stats crashing in on the transfer of wealth, and it's just upping the ante for getting your estate plan done, right?
Beautiful. You know. Yeah, I might be one of those 7, right? Okay.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people out there.
I know. So tell us more.
Don't feel guilty, because you'll have 6 other people in the boat.
Yes. Thank you. What other statistics are we talking about out there? What else is happening with us?
I think the other part is that there's this issue, like sort of what comes up, well, if all these people aren't planning, why aren't they planning? And I mean, some of it is they're procrastinating. That's human nature. We can't, nobody should be beat up for that sin. But also, I think people view that it's unnecessary. They are younger. They don't have a lot of money. And I think in that case, they're really, and it's easy to do that, right? You have a mortgage on your house, maybe you have kids, all those expenses. So you don't have what you think of as a lot of expendable money. But if you have a mortgage on your house, obviously, as we all know, if we pay our mortgage down, our equity grows, our real estate may appreciate. So your assets are appreciating. You're getting more money in an investment type of way, but you're not really seeing it, right? Then you have when you're younger, you have a lot of money tied up in what I tend to call stealth wealth assets, and that's like your 401k. Put money in your 401k, it's growing. We're all happy to watch that growth, but we don't think of that as wealth because we can't spend it. We know if we withdraw, we're going to be subject generally to a penalty, so we can't take it to buy a vacation home or go on vacation or go to the movies or whatever it looks like. So there's that. And then the other one is life insurance. And you're younger, maybe have life insurance through work. Term tends to be very cheap when you're young. And you don't think of it adding again to your wealth pot because you can't take it and go on vacation with it or buy a house or whatever it looks like. But when you die, the proceeds of that policy are going to be part of your estate. So all of a sudden you're looking at, if you're carrying $1 million life insurance policy, there's $1 million of wealth that's available for your children that you had kind of overlooked, for lack of a better way to put it.
Well, also, in this work that you've been doing for so long, the reasons, why people don't plan and what really happens if you don't have a plan. Yeah. Let's talk about
So
that.
basically, if you don't have a plan, then the state where you're living has a plan for you. So in Maryland, what happens is that if you have a spouse, and now there's certain assets that won't be impacted by your plan. So if you have a spouse and you own things jointly, like your house typically, or bank accounts or whatever, that will go directly to your surviving spouse. So that really doesn't impact the plan. But anything you own in your own name doesn't go directly to, all of it doesn't go to the spouse. In Maryland, if I'm remembering correctly, it's 100, when you have individual, like money in your own name, 100,000, first 100,000 goes to your husband or wife. Everything above that is split between your spouse and your kids. So your spouse could be kind of unhappy about that. The other thing that can happen is, and when this happens, it's very tragic, is that you have all these joint assets with your husband or wife. I don't need a will. Everything's going to pass
Mm-hmm.
to him or her. And then what happens if you both die, right?
Oof.
At the same time?
Yeah.
Then you don't have a will and there's nothing to catch the money and property for your children. So
Mm-hmm.
that plan can fail because of the confluence of circumstances. And then ultimately, again, I don't know why people want the state of Maryland or the state of New York or the state of Hawaii or wherever to plan for them, because, and then ultimately, if you have no children or grandchildren or brothers and sisters, your money will go to the Board of Education in the county you're living in Maryland. New York probably has a different fallback, but everybody's got a catch hold. And, you know, you may be fine with that, but you may say, well, I've got a better plan. I'd rather go to my, friends or charity or whatever. Basically, you're leaving it up to the state of Maryland. I don't think that's a good plan.
Mm-mm. Well, people also are maybe a little overwhelmed thinking they really don't know they don't know where the documents are. They don't know what they need. Do you want to go over the basics of what we do need, to
Sure.
have with us? Thank you.
Absolutely. So what you should basically look at is, I look at the sort of the big three or the big four. So the big three would be a will, a power of attorney, and a medical directive. The big four is a will, a revocable trust, power of attorney, and medical directive. So we're all kind of familiar with what a will does. Basically, is the primary document of how we're going to pass our wealth when we die. What the trust does is so then let me back up 1 second. Then the other two documents, power of attorney, medical directive, are basic documents that have authority while you're alive. And what they deal with is issues of incapacity. So they're setting up somebody to handle your financial affairs, for instance, under the power of attorney, if you can't handle them. You have a stroke or some medical event, you can't handle your financial affairs, you're able to nominate somebody to handle your affairs. And sometimes they say here, well, I'm married, my husband or wife can handle all that. And there's a lot of truth to that. However, if you need to sell your home, you both are on the house. And if your spouse cannot appear at the settlement table because of a health issue, then you can't sign the documents for him or her. So it, there are the layers of capacity, or, that's a problem. And then medical directive, basically what it does is it sets up somebody to make your medical decisions if you can't make them. So
Mm-hmm.
if your spouse isn't around or you don't have a spouse, your significant other or your children or brothers and sisters, whatever that looks like. And then part two of that document sets up, this is the kind of healthcare treatment I want when I'm at the end of my life. I want no medical intervention, including no feeding tube. Maybe I want a feeding tube. Maybe I want
Mm-hmm.
everything to be kept alive. And I think one of the things about part two is that, we every once in a while it'll bubble up and it makes a lot of news, national news pretty much, where somebody's been in a permanent coma, they and they want to be taken off, the family wants to take them off of life support, or a portion of the family wants to take them off of life support. And other side of the family doesn't. And then you have a giant court case and all the media blow up. And
Yeah.
this gives you, basically sets forth your wishes concerning that. And then Maryland, in the third part, basically can set up instructions about your body after death. Do you want to be an organ donor? Do you want to
Mm-hmm.
donate your body to science? Whatever that looks like. And then when we switch to the big four, the trust, what that sets up is basically combines the will. So under second part of the trust, we're going to say, this is where my money and property is going to go when I die. First part of the trust sort of is similar to a power of attorney, is and it sets up management of your assets in the event of incapacity. And so it combines both a power of attorney and a will, or it has indicia of that. And then but there are advantages of the trust. I think the trust is the best vehicle to handle incapacity. So if you're, particularly as you get older, we often look at doing revocable trust for clients. Second part of it, this makes a lot of noise in the media. Assets in the trust avoid probate. There's truth, that's very true.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think, like, avoiding probate, there is some advantages, but I think probate does get a bad rap because people say, oh, this was so horrible, and they blame probate. If you peel back the onion or whatever layers, it's not the probate process half the time. It's the kids who people are fighting over what's left of mom and dad's assets. So, it's not that, don't blame the process, blame the family, because they're the ones arguing. And I tell people a lot, it doesn't matter whether we have a trust or a will, probate or not, we're just picking a document we're arguing over or under, whatever it would be.
My goodness. Well, let me just remind everyone, if you are tuning in, we are talking to our full service estate planning law firm and the owner of that firm, Julie, joining us here, talking all the ins and the outs of, estate planning, the transitions. We're talking wills, we're talking trusts, we're talking all these documents that she can help you plan for in advance and to start the process, because a lot of people, as she's been mentioning, don't have this. And it's unfortunate because a lot of things can go bad. And I know we've talked about that. And, we're just glad she's here giving us, advice. And, in regards to that, can you just share a story or two about how things have gone wrong because people didn't have all these documents and everything in place?
Oh, sure. So actually, this happened like yesterday. Is I have parents came in and their son had unfortunately passed away um, because of a health issue, and he's in, I think, his early 50s, and I'm helping them work through the process. They have no idea what he has. I
Mm-hmm.
said, does he have, what they were able to relay is he had worked in California for about 20 years. He now um, has moved to Maryland,
Yeah.
or moved to Maryland prior to his death. They're like, we don't even know the company he worked with. And the company, I think, had been bought out. And so we're trying to locate this 401k. And he didn't share where the 401k was located. And then
Yeah.
apparently he has some Bitcoin where they're not even sure where that is. So it's going to be very difficult to just kind of figure out how much property he does have because he was so private. And I get being private, I think, but at some certain point, you owe it to yourself, or um, you owe it to your people who are going to take over, to know where help them find your assets, right? Because it's difficult. Um, and then, I mean, there's too many Well, there's a lot of fighting that goes on. And the funny thing I find, Jill, is with fighting is that,
Uh,
you know, you think people are fighting over the large numbers, the values with many zeros after the decimal, a lot of zeros. But a lot of times people fight harder over the little stuff, the stuff in the house, things like that. They find it, they somehow find that the stuff in mom and dad's house is going to be worth thousands and thousands instead of
mm-hmm.
dollars and dollars is what it really is worth. So it can be very difficult.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, let's continue the conversation. I know there's still more you want to talk about with planning of estates. Where are we at?
So I think some of the concerns that you can address in a plan is, so if you are parents with minor children, one of the things
Yes.
you want to set up is guardians for your kids. Who's going to raise your children if you can't raise them? So that's the step one, most important. And I think also, to go back to the theme of why people don't plan, I think that's one reason parents don't plan is they, I don't want to say overthink because that sounds critical, but they can't settle on
Yeah.
who should raise the kids. And
Ah,
I think it's a concern. But again, if you don't make this representation, Maryland is going to select somebody for you. So, even if you think, well, nobody's going to do as good a job as I am as a parent, I get that. But there's got to be somebody who can do an okay job, right? Because
mhm.
you don't want to, want to think about who couldn't do the job, right? And then the other thing is you're going to set forth a plan for the kids how to manage their money. Because if you don't have a will, Maryland and New York and all the other states are going to say, your
Yeah.
18-year-old child is an adult, push the money to them. And they have 18-year-old friends. So the money could go out, by the time they're 19, your children may not have any money. So the will allows you
Mhm.
to basically, through planning, stretch out or delay the time that the kids get the money so that hopefully they have had a chance to mature and are able to handle the money they might get at that point. And then when you have adult children, we're not so worried about hopefully raising them at this point. Hopefully they've gotten to a point where they're raised. But, this is a way you can manage conflict or try to manage conflict by saying, okay, I think sometimes avoiding conflict is as straightforward as thinking about who's going to manage my money after I die
Mhm.
or I lose capacity and selecting the child who is the best suited for that. Because we all know we have more than, we're not only children, we have several brothers and sisters. I think we would all say, we all know several of them would be better than others.
True.
And if the parents are, they understand their kids' weaknesses, they would say that too. And some of it can be, Jill, not so much having the knowledge or the brain power to do it, but selecting somebody who is maybe a little more diplomatic than your other kids. I mean, they all can be equally good at doing it, but there are some that just, you know, come in with a sledgehammer or throw gas on the fire, whatever it looks like. And maybe that's not the person to do it, right?
Exactly.
You
Well,
know,
and during your in your career of all this, there's also, I mean, the good about this that I just could imagine, the people that are feeling hassle-free, worry-free, because I could only imagine so many people that are not when this all happens. And so now let's say you do the estate plan, you get that in order. Like, how often are you supposed to update it, review it, and all those things that people might forget about?
well, I think that is true. I mean, I would say this, that we've talked about a lot of negative stuff, but there is some very rewarding aspects because most people come to me because
Yes.
they've been successful in life. And a lot of them do come with stories of, they share that their family is, happy or they get along. And so there is a lot of positivity. I know I sound really negative, but it's the negative, it's a squeaky wheel, right? But there is a lot of positivity. But I think that I kind of think about estate planning in sort of maybe three stages. So the first stage would be you're doing it when your children are younger, you're putting in guardians, you're putting in people to manage their money, that type of thing. Second stage might be where you're updating it and saying, now my kids are adults. They're in their
Mhm.
20s or 30s. They're ready to handle, I want them to have the responsibility of taking care of me or taking care of my affairs after I die. So we're updating it for that to, reflect everybody's, maturity level, I guess. And then the third time might be when you're looking at maybe updating it because mom and dad are getting older and there's a death of a spouse. And
Yeah.
then, updating it then. And then, so those are kind of, I think, the big three. But within that, I do recommend that you update your, or not update, but review your plan. I use every 5 years. And I don't mean, Jill, you got to come in here and see me and create more attorney's fees, but I ask people, placate me from afar.
Yeah.
Pull your pull your will off the shelf for your trust, dust it off, look at it, see if it still fits where you are in life. And then if it does, it can go back and collect some more dust. But if you
Yeah.
look at it and go, yeah, the people I picked as guardians are not suited for this or
Yeah.
whatever it looks like, or, then you should update it. And I mean, I would say too that it's every 5 years are a major life event. So again, if you recognize the people you selected as a guardian or handling your money are going to be ill suited, you need to come in, right?
Yeah.
You don't stop. But on the other hand, the documents are drafted, I think, pretty flexible. So it doesn't mean that you have to come in and see me an update for sort of major life events, but that are expected. For instance, you know, I've done some wills recently for young couples who have one child. They're young enough, they probably are thinking, we may have more. We'd like to have a
Yeah.
couple of kids. Well, they don't, as big a life event as having a second or third child is,
Mhm.
we don't need to update your will for that because we'll say in there that it takes care of Lucy and any future children. So certain things can be carried forward. And, we also naming like a guardian. Usually I would advise people to name your primary guardian, but let's pick a backup.
Yeah.
Let's pick backups for people who are handling your money so that if something happens to one of them, you don't necessarily have to rush in and say, oh, I need to get to update these plans.
I love it. That is so true. Well, also, in our last few minutes together here, I know we are recapping all that we've talked about in a sense, and just the importance, which I hope people can understand by speaking to you all this time. You really need legal guidance to protect your assets, and, you need the experience. You guys are trustworthy, experience, and could you just share just a little bit about your experience, so people feel, confident? I just feel also that there's also, when it comes to choosing people to help you, like the executor of the will, like you mentioned, how do you find that person? Because people also get offended, right? So it's a very
Well,
fine line.
exactly. I get it. Like I've had, people come in and they'll say, I need to pick, Julie to be my personal representative or executor because she's the oldest.
Yep.
And like the next word out of their mouth is, yeah, but she wouldn't be very suited for this. So
Yep.
I tell them, look, you need to pick if you have multiple children, the child you think is going to do the best job.
Yeah.
So if it's the middle child or it's the
Hmm.
youngest, go out of order. I also tell them that, yes, your children will think that if you pick Julie, that you love Julie, that she was the favorite
Yeah.
with the initial. Then when they find out how much work they have to do or Julie has to do, they're going to say, what did Julie do to make mom and dad mad? Is essentially what's going to happen. So it does play out after time. And then I also tell people, look, if you have children that you think are equally well suited, then you got to break the tie.
Yeah.
And like kind of on that, I did have a dad a client passed away recently, and the dad had named his son, who lives here in Maryland, as the personal representative. And the daughter is apparently a little not angry, but was a little hurt, I think. I think she's the oldest, and I think she's well qualified, but she lives in Ohio. And I said, look, dad and mom had to break the tie, and he's living here, you're living several hours away. It made sense to go with the person who was closer geography wise.
Of
That,
course.
so there's different things, and none of them really are. A lot of these tiebreakers have nothing to do with how much you love somebody. It is more where you're living, or sometimes it is everybody's equal. Pick the oldest, you got to break the tie, right? So, but it's not a reflection of whether you were mom and dad's favorite.
Aw. All right, Julie, how can we reach out to you? Please share.
So you can reach me by calling me the office at 410-286-8100, or you can visit my website at www.jasestate, that's ESTATE law.com.
Perfect. And I hope you have a fantastic day.
You do
Looking
the
forward
same.
to it. And we'll touch base again next week. My goodness. I feel like the
Perfect.
summer's already, oh my gosh, we're already in the height of it. All right. We'll talk next
Exactly.
week, sweetie. You have a
Have
great
a
day.
great day.
Okay.
Take
Thank you.
care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.